Izzy! Shut the fuck up. Jesus. Test. Sorry. Have a little Arctic Chihuahua, a poodle who just barks like crazy. And she does. Woosah! Through the hustle and bustle of life, I know that we all can be affected by this thing called life. And what we come here to do is have discussions, talk, and maybe some meditations. Come to have a conversation with and listen here, hopefully. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming by, Miss Lynn, Mother Gwen, Miss Marie, Miss Dolores, Miss Phyllis. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Like, some days you can be, it's not that I'm in a funk. I just, have kids and a lot going on, and I drove my wife to my daughter's basketball game, and so like literally I'm balls to the wall trying to do this, but it's so worth it. It's what I do. It's what we do. It's what we're here for, right? Is to come together. One of the biggest things that I've heard about people that are leaving or trying to do something different from organized religion is have some kind of community. And when you have community, you have to build community. And this is not fear-based theology. So therefore, you don't fear that if you don't be here, that something is going to happen or change, right? Or you're going to go to hell, or whatever the case may be. God's not going to bless you. He's not going to give you what you want to believe. And what's really interesting, if you believe that God is going to not do something for you because you didn't do something, guess what? You probably will end up getting results wise, right? See, it's an energy. It's an energy. The feeling is the secret. No matter if you believe it, go within or go without. Release the fear, release the doubt. That's a song. Let your light shine. Let your light shine. I will First, I want to start little housekeeping. I'm so sorry that I haven't sent out the link to the retreat. It is scheduled March 27th. Really, people coming in on the 26th. Um, and if you come in on the 26th, then we'll have to do something different room wise. Um, but the 27th through the 29th, you may fly out on the 30th of March. And last I looked, flights were pretty reasonable. Um, the main retreat is $400, not, and that includes staying room. If we have 10 people, then everybody have a cabin. If we have, I think maybe 15, then there's going to be some double ups, but there's a larger cabin there too. And so everything's going to be good. I will plan on getting together. Excuse me. Um, Getting together with people on maybe this Sunday. Just have a Zoom. We can talk about what's going on, what's going to happen. I would love to get 10 or 15 people together on a Zoom call, so we can have a conversation um, about what's going to take place, what the expectation is, and the content, the agenda. If you're just tapping in and tuning in, maybe for your first time, welcome. Um, I would love for you to, if you anyone that comes and watch this in a replay or you're just watching along, hit the comments up if you get a chance, and to let us know you're here. Just to say hey, maybe shout out where you're from. Um, everything that is taking place and going on in the world. There's a few comments that I just have. Um, and what I'm feeling and what is really happening in the world, but really it's really happening um, in America. There's so many different things that you can hear about, and we have so many different um, viewpoints of life and what's taking place, and it can be pretty stressful. You know, anybody out there can kind of feel the tension on what's taken, just all the just the various different things. One thing I know that is taking place is, of course, a lot of people are uh, leaving the church or looking for community. A lot of people talking about being spiritual but not religious, and trying to define what that truly means. Um, it's it's not that I think people will uh people are looking. There's a mass exodus of organized where you're coming all together and you're paying your tithes and you're doing everything that you've been told to do for years. And some people within this community have not been a part of organized religion. I officially kind of departed from organized religion in terms of every Sunday getting up, going to church. How many of you guys, there was a time in life that it was like, how can you imagine, like, not feeling guilty and getting up to go to church, like not feeling guilty and then not going to church on a Sunday. It was pretty hardcore in the 80s. I remember that's my childhood. I was born in the 70s, but I remember the 80s and 90s where, you're going to go to church, purity culture. Purity was after you become, I think, a teen. But I remember just through the years, you're going to go typically on a Sunday, sometime on a Wednesday, you know, and depends on what's going on. You're going to have rehearsal, choir practice, you know, there's always a little something going on. Who remembers those days, where there's something always taking place um, at the church. Any of y'all remember that? I didn't realize I hurt myself. Deconstructing what you believe is quintessential to making room or space for critical thinking and understanding, and not allowing other human beings to have power over all of your thoughts. It's quite interesting. Some people will have their own thought, articulate it, think about it, process, and really research. But then someone else will come along and tell you, a person that is in church that's doing it, they practice they practice the church thing. Um, I heard a statement earlier this week, and it says people focus on the history in the Bible, but not the history of the Bible. The history in the Bible is long, it could be dark, and very deep when you look at the totality of it all, right? Where did it start, where did it begin, Ethiopian Bible, and then all the translations, and then the different adaptations and adoptions between the Catholicism and Mormonism and Jehovah's Witness and Pentecostalism and Baptists, and right, there's all these different adoptions, but we don't give those adoptions any credence, as in who's official, because who's official comes down to who is official, um, who has the most people, who has the most individual people in their community that they can actually, so the Jehovah's Witness has a large community of people. Mormons have a very large community of people. They have a whole entire system and structure that they have been doing for years. And it's weird because even though some of it is the most quackiest thing you could ever hear, some of this stuff is the most quackiest stuff. And what I mean by quacky, not to trying to offend anybody that's Mormon, but people looking in hats. A man looks in a hat and gets instructions from God, and this is not like it's not mystical and in the BC era. This is like America, like he got the Bible, but then he's going to get his own interpretation and his own understanding, and he's going to create a religion. And 100 years or more later, a couple 100 years, I don't know, 100 years later, you have an entity that generates the most money. Catholicism is wealthy, but not in America. Like, it's different, right? there's this Mormon church has this one group and organization has 200, I think $250 billion, so they can use that budget to do whatever they do, right? It's not to knock it, but it's just to let you know and to critically think about all the different sectors and different groups. And we want to deconstruct and build community. A lot of people are wanting this. So expanded consciousness. We like to be grounded. We like to be um, um, open, if you will, transparent. Um, and let me just start with a question for you, and that is, what if your spiritual life is real, but the part is just programmed? Religious beliefs, they just program. So I know a lot of this you may agree with, or you may find um that when you can hear something that aligns with your thinking or aligns with you, it's just a level of confirmation. So you don't have to just sit back and like, oh, I don't know what this is. A lot of this is just confirmation. See, you know, for the most part, people are not just stupid. You run into that, but I'm telling you that just because people are programmed, they're not stupid. And our parents or our community, certain, it's not that they really are evil. In deconstructing, it's not that we want to just trash the Bible. I mean, I understand that people, and I reverence, and I want to give people their space, and I want to know, and if they want to be hungry for God, to me, I know it's just they want to have meaning, they want to have truth, and most likely they want to have some level of healing and still be carrying beliefs that were just basically installed before you could even think. We have a lot of these things that are just here, and they're installed and starts really young a lot of times. And if you're from the South, it's deeply integrated. I remember they was when I just went to or I come to Oklahoma going to Oral Roberts. People are really firm when it comes to not having their kids in public school. A lot of them are like, I don't want my kids in public school because that public school is going to teach them some things that I don't want them to know, or they want to teach them things that are not godly or not of God. But quiet as kept, who is the average person that's going to a public school in some of those in public school in a given city, right? Who can afford to go to a private school? What teachers are you going to have typically in a private school or a private Christian school, right? There's definitely not going to most likely be any level of diversity. It is what it is. And people say, what does that matter? Well, it matters because of lived experience. Even if it's a white person that's teaching a black person, it still is a different lived experience if that white person was lived or raised in their neighborhood. That gives even more of an in-depth and connection to the lived experience of the individual. But a lot of things we can carry on, a lot of these beliefs and a lot of this stuff we carry on because it's almost like it's locked into our nervous system, but it makes people feel safe. It's safe to have Jesus from a it's safe to have Jesus from a magical being in the sky, and I just get to worship this individual. I'm here to tell you, I, I don't understand worshiping Jesus because he is not a person in my book that wanted to be worshiped. Um, he wanted to be modeled, mimicked. Um, he wanted his core essence of who he is and people to understand that they are that also. I know that's it can be hard for some people, but there's a lot of beliefs that we have, as you know, the reason why we're here, that do not add to our lives. And actually, they begin to subtract. And if you notice, you can look around, there's a lot of things that we experience. And the reason why you are deconstructing, the reason why you are listening to me, the reason why you are at this moment in this place is the fact that you want to subtract. Yeah, you want to actually hear and be able to monitor your thoughts and to monitor your or evaluate your emotions, evaluate what you believe and why you believe it, and figure out like this that wasn't helping me. And I know there's a big chunk of you guys, Mother Gwen and Mother Dolores and you know Miss Lynn. There's pretty much a lot of you expanded conscious people have been expanded in that way for a while. And now here we are being, I think, of a safe space for other people to come along and expand their consciousness. Look at meditation and look at other principles and things that we used to be afraid of or scared of in order for us to have tools to process so that we can um, reach our higher calling. But a lot of things that we've been programmed with and the beliefs, they begin to subtract from our whole self. And if you look at today, whenever they try to say God, 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 Jesus, 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 you're not like, God is wanting us to be this way. God is wanting us to be conservative, and God is wanting us to um, um, believe that ICE is God or a movement of God. Just some really interesting things. But I'm telling you, for me, I don't really get peace out of that approach. Um, and though that energy subtracts peace, it kind of subtracts self-trust. Um, it subtracts our ability to be present. Being present is a process. These things subtract our ability to love people who are different. And ultimately, it subtracts our ability to think. So, tonight I want to talk about why everybody needs to deconstruct their religious beliefs, but yet still build and connect to community. Because the tragedy isn't the religious confusion, but it's the tragedy comes from isolation. We don't want the institution. We don't like the institution, but it leaves a gap when we don't develop community. Because if you look at the word community, you can see come and unity, almost like unity is together, right? People leave the church, and a lot of times you want to leave the control, but then you also leave belonging. The system is so set up the way it works is the the codes and the language and you know um the environment and you think about black church praise dancing is a code. It's a thing, right? People leave the church and they think they leave in control. They feel like they lose people and they will lose people. And that loss can bring grief. I just want you to know that. It can bring joy. Um, you lose a place where there's people coming together because you come together in a church for marriage, you come together in a church for death. People will come there for depression, sometimes asking questions about the identity, and you get to pass off your identity and then take on that identity. And it can feel good to just be like, okay, I don't have an identity besides this. That's why people are so adamant to, I'm a Christian, right? They're super adamant in the to be in that club or that group, and it kind of pulling some people away because they feel like if you are a Christian and you act like this, you are a Christian, you act like that. I may not want to be one. And if I am one, I may want to be a little different. Sometimes we may wonder why many people deconstructed end up cynical, lonely, and can end up spiritually numb. And that's why we are here. I I in my walk and in my journey, doing business and helping people with various things, there's times that I have questioned if I wanted to talk about deconstructing and talk about, moving forward in your life and expanding your consciousness and how to do that. Because it's so prevalent and there's so much infighting that it can get to a point where you're like, you know what, I'm going to just do my thing, right? And I'm not going to worry about it. But here we are. Um, Deconstructing is a process of checking, evaluating, managing, monitoring, and dealing with how you feel when it comes to what you believe. And deconstructing Christianity has to do with asking those questions about your religious belief and growing up. Quiet as kept, people don't know, but there are many people that are deconstructing Islam. And it becomes more of a culture and a way of life. They don't necessarily, I would say I would say, I have to look it up, but I guarantee you 50% of people that say they're Muslim, there's a 50% that are very dedicated and very um, ad, uh, they are very adjusted or they're very dedicated to their faith. They get up, they do all their prayers, and then there's a lot of people that deal with it from a culture standpoint. Whereas like my family's it, you know, I'm from these countries that I'm from a country that may have Muslims in it, so therefore the what's the odds of a person coming from Morocco or a person coming from Bangladesh or a person coming from Saudi Arabia or Sudan? Like you're going to most likely be surrounded with Islam, just like we're surrounded with Christianity. We're going to talk about rebuilding without repeating the same manipulation. I want to be able to help you deconstruct without the disrespect. Some people are just like, I'm done with it. I hate it. And I'm not dealing with it. And if you're there and you're doing that, you drank the Kool-Aid, right? I get it 100%. I get it. Not everybody is pulled to do this. And I'm not going to just do this solely. This is just a big chunk of, in order for you to have an divine, authentic self, in order for you to really get to that understanding of who you really are and the answers that are within you, you might need to deconstruct some things about who you are, some things about your mind, something. And I don't care if you've been doing it for 15 years, 20 years, we can forever learn, right? Especially with some of this stuff, you learn new things where it's like, oh, I never thought about that. I think about Western Christianity. And the thing about Western Christianity versus Eastern Christianity, of course, the West has formulated and come up with kind of its take on this story. But we have never thought or never really have learned, unless you grow up in an Orthodox space, here in the Mid-South, or we call it the Mid-South West or something like that. It's like you learn one thing in pretty much all America. You learn one thing. You learn that one thing in Christianity, and God is God, and Christianity is Christianity. We don't have no discussions about denominations. Matter of fact, when I grew up, I thought Jehovah's Witnesses were a different religion. I didn't know technically they're Christians. They're a branch of Christianity. It was in my later years that I kind of come across where it's like, wait a minute, they're Christians too. Mormons are Christians too. Catholics are Christians, because they would consider a Catholic a Catholic. They don't consider a Catholic a Christian. They think Catholicism is a religion separate from Christianity, and it's not. As I'm talking about all of this, you have heard it time and time again, and now just understanding we're living in a time where the religious landscape is super duper loud, yet you understand that it's fractured and it's being used politically. And how is it used politically? We're just going to be straight up with it. One way it is used, as in Christianity and the nation, or Christian nationalism, or Christian politics, or Christian base, or politics that are interwoven with the religion Christianity. I think Saudi Arabia does that. The thing that people are afraid of is Sharia law, right? A lot of people that would be afraid of Muslims, or somewhat brown people, right? Or brown people. It's like they're afraid that you're going to bring what the law is in Saudi and it's just going to be established. Somehow they're going to wipe out all of our government, and they're going to wipe out all of our people, and they're just going to colonize and take over our government. I think you already did that. Things are already done. You could have issues or problems on infighting, but Christian nationalism is basically the fusion of Christianity and civil or civic life, and the nation as an identity. Some scholars in civic groups describe it as an ideology that wants government to defend that fusion as essential to belonging and public policy. But here on the other end, we've got people who are exhausted by church culture, walking or running away. Because of that system there is actually fueling people. It actually is motivating people. It is actually getting people to do research, and they're understanding there's history in the Bible where you can go deep and you can actually formulate almost whatever you want based on whatever scholar that you research in your own self. Or you can actually also start looking at the history of the Bible. Where did it come from? Why is it so powerful? Right? What good is it if it's just a book and you don't have a priest, or if you don't have a pastor, if you don't have somebody that hypes it up? What good is it? Right? And when you start blending it with the public, with politics, with the nation now, and now all of a sudden the governmental structure and power completely changes. We may get into how that changed, but a lot of people are getting exhausted from the culture, from the doctrines, but ultimately by the entire system, or as we say, ecosystem. And that right there in the middle, you got a ton of people who are still feeling spiritual. Some of you guys pray. Some of you guys still believe in something. Some people still want God. They just don't trust the institution. That's where interspiritual or interfaith is all the faiths, but interspirituality is understanding that your makeup of who you are as a human being, the intrinsic nature for you to wonder and wander and be open to, it's a form of creativity, right? And that's where we start blending and getting into levels of meditation and what it's capable of doing for your life. The fragmentation is what really is driving fragmentation. This is God, this is Jesus. We're going to have a separate Super Bowl. This is, we're going to worship God. But then whenever you come out with it, it's not necessarily that. It's something else, right? That's fragmentation. And it's done with specific groups. I've quoted this numerous times, and somebody tried to say, oh, that's not true. But the actual research group, I have it in my notes, is Gordon Conwell. And the Gordon Conwell research group estimated that there were 45,000 denominations worldwide listed across countries. There's a lot of people that grew up this, and you grew up that, where they say this is the way, and then you grow up and realize that there are tens of thousands of versions of the way, which forces you to ask the question, is if God is confused, or are we confused? What do you think about that? So here's what I'm gonna claim: that most people, including yourself, don't struggle with the concept of God. A lot of us refer to it with being within. We refer to it as a source, right? Consciousness does not sit in our brain. A lot of people don't struggle with it. They ultimately struggle just with most likely you struggle with the system and why it wants you to do what it wants you to do, why it wants you to give, and why it wants you to come back and and if you don't come to me, at least find another Bible believing or Bible focus or Bible centric. And really what they're saying is a American King James, you know, cultural version that we have been doing for 100 years. Well, do you believe in Jesus? Jesus is way, and it's just like, oh my God. In the meantime, Elon Musk is running your Bible. He wants you to be all locked into that so he can do what he does, right? And what he wants to control, what he wants to have power over. Belief systems is where this all leads to. And a lot of my study and what I'm doing is belief engineering is something that I'm toying with, and how to program or deprogram your belief systems so that you can actually begin to reprogram your belief systems. You're doing it right now. Sorry, I went to bed late. Belief systems are not just ideas. A belief system can be seen more easily as an identity in the identity structure. So when you think, we're talking politics just a wee bit. So when you think about as they would say, a person that is progressive and left leaning in their ways of thinking, that's a belief system. A lot of times these belief systems can affect people. So we need people to be able to check, right, their beliefs. People believe that it was okay to actually hang people in the city or in the towns. We're going to have a lynching, and we don't have slavery per se in most places at that era in time that you can lynch somebody. But those lynchings were taught to control the nervous system and to control the individual persons and people, and to show you, I will kill you. There's a story I read where they cut the baby out of a pregnant woman hanging upside down, crushed the baby's head, and caught her on fire because she was coming because they did something to her husband. This is not for people to feel guilty, but it's for you to understand and recognize some of the deep pains that have lived within the community for a century, because that only happened, I think, 100 years ago, maybe a little over 120 years ago. Understand that beliefs are not ideas, and that a belief is what we can consider an identity structure, because your beliefs monitor this. They tell you who you are. They also tell you who is safe. They tell you who is dangerous. If you have that positive, you're going to come back with a negative. One of the things that's really, really, really interesting is I want you to monitor yourself. And sometimes beliefs are the guardrail for how you are supposed to feel. Belief systems that you can have when deconstructing can have guardrails on how you're supposed to feel. I'm in a deconstructing Christianity group with a guy named Carl, and he asked a question about physical pleasure. Is it a gift or is it shame? Coming from the environment of the church, and a lot of that being crossed over in America outside of the church, you will feel some level of shame when you start talking. You not will, but you can feel some level of shame when you start talking a bit about personal pleasure, right? You can feel levels of guilt. You know, you're wanting to control how you feel, um, wanting to control what you are allowed to want, the big questions of sin. Um, and essentially what happens when you step out of line, because if you step out of line, it's not the church community that necessarily is just going to come for you. It's the fact that the church community is going to tell you that God is going to do it. No different than sometimes people wanting to use God as a weapon or something to attack people with. God, I need for you to go and shut them down. If it's harming people or hurting people, I think that could be a okay prayer. If you want to understand modern Western Christianity, you have to understand something real simple. I want you to understand this. Belief is power. Belief is power. I've talked about this, I think, last week, but this is why religious spaces get used. A lot of times why people market to them. And definitely 100% while it is getting politicized even that much more. It can get leverage. And as I had read a research paper in the 60s, you don't even have to understand that the CIA understood the institution and studied the influence and infiltrated and had some informants, people acting like they're evangelical and really they're CIA agents wanting to implement this system and being able to get people to be in this space. They know, the system knows, if you can get people so locked into their Jesus and everything is about their Jesus, you could slip them the Kool-Aid, and I mean real Kool-Aid, just like Jim Jones did. Like you can really and one of the things is a lot of times you hear people talking about specifically Christianity being fake and you're not a real Christian if you don't follow the way of Jesus. Or, and I get it. People calling people out and maybe pointing them to the facts. I think that's worthwhile. I think we should. But in order for us to be strategic, you want to be able to attract people that want to use it, that want to be able to understand the process. You guys get it? That Christian nationalism is political. I've kind of reviewed some of that. Uh, and one of the things I've looked at is it being almost like a belief technology, because it's almost like a technology because I can use this language to shape civic identity, loyalty. I can shape belonging. And if I use social media, which you're already in a daze by scrolling and scrolling, I can use social media to have you super locked in and believe in everything you see, with most of it, a lot of it being what we call bots. We'll briefly go over what deconstructing is. And we've talked a lot about it. But I just want to be clear that for people that don't understand it, that are still consider themselves not deconstructing, it's like, I'm a Christian, I'm a Pentecostal, I'm a holiness, I'm a Baptist, and I'm gonna go there. There's a lot of people nowadays more than ever where they go to church, but they still smoke, drink, cuss, and do everything. I didn't grow up that way. When you went to church, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you pray 17 times a day. You just, you want to almost be radical, and I get it. But I want you to know that when I speak on and when you hear deconstructing, it's not just people saying like I hate the church. Now there are some people that are completely against the institution. Period. There are people against the institution and they hate it. Organized religion. I get it. But I don't think it goes away that easy. I don't think it goes away that easy. I think there's a process in order for us to figure out what's next because there's a community tied to it. There's unity tied to that function, that functionality. And you got hundreds of years of doing it. You have to have there has to be a way for us to work with each other and to feel and to connect to each other, right? And then actually be able to have resources. There's a lot more resources out there. Deconstructing is not a license to sin, as um, Bishop Carlton Pearson, someone said, "Oh, you just want to sin, just have a license to sin." And it's like, if you have in the mind that I'm going to deconstruct and I'm not going to be a Christian, but all of a sudden now I'm going to try to go and do a bunch of things that are ethically wrong, like and we're not even going to talk about the Epstein files. And believe me, there's corruption and all that craziness in government in general. There's no party that is that is innocent. Um, it's just there's different agendas. Um, and as we deconstruct, we're able to hopefully think more critically. We're able to seek truth. Goes back to that question: what do I believe? Why do I believe it? And how do those beliefs add to or subtract to the quality of my life? And if you ask, what do I believe? You can also ask, who taught me this? Community, my family. And what has it done for me? What did it do for me? Another good question is, what did it produce in me? And lastly, what did it cost me? Is this aligned with love, reality, health, and wellness? There are things we can ask. And you want to know what most people are afraid of? See, they're not afraid of belief, of the wrong belief. Most people are afraid that they won't belong if they change. One of the biggest things that there was some era in time, one of the biggest things you can do is banish an individual from a community. Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with eating and taking care of yourself, and in terms of food, clothing, and shelter, even during the Bible days. If you banish somebody from the community, that's one of the worst things you can do. See, most church culture isn't, a lot of church culture isn't built on trying to figure out the truth. It's just built on safety, community, um, coming together with the agreement that everything, the statement of faith, we're going to come together, and everything that I put forth in this book and everything I put forth in my statement of faith, you have to sign that contract. hmm You have to sign that contract. You gonna do this or not? I think Mormonism and different ones, you got to come up, and Pentecostal, you're gonna come up, you're gonna be at the altar. You might tarry a little bit and try to get the Holy Spirit to come into Holy Ghost to come into your life. All these different things that we formulated and came up with that I think were necessary for the time and era for what we believe that we needed. But I think we're moving into an era in time that we just have our choice to do that based on how we feel, how we want to signify, and how we want to um, respond and to how we feel about God and how we feel about um, even spirituality. Because I'll have a little Pentecostal twist doing my meditation stuff, little church twist, just because there's a lot of things that were neat to the culture. Most people, though, are afraid um, of change and not belonging. They want to feel safe. The biggest thing that I want you to do, if you get anything from this talk, we'll get deeper into this in the retreat where we'll be able to reply and respond, and then build up each other at the retreat is more of becoming stewards, becoming administrators, becoming people that are going to change our own lives and help others change too. There's a lot of safety that people find within a lot of the structure of the church. The biggest thing we want to do is for you to stop allowing people to stop outsourcing your consciousness. Stop allowing other people to completely tell you what you experience in your life. You can listen and evaluate, but it's time that we not let people hijack our consciousness. And I understand, just as I reflect, this can feel like death to some people of what you lose. If you have a borrowed identity of what life is for all this long, and then all of a sudden somebody comes along and says, nah, I'm sorry to tell you, yeah, you believe that for 40 years, but it's not all necessarily true. There's a lot of the American philosophy and engine of the system that has been adapted and adopted into what you believe. And so there's different versions of the Bible. There's different ways that people can be Christians. There's different ways that people can not be that agnostic and not just atheist, but they could be an agnostic. Grow up with the Bible and then want to change. And it can really affect you. A lot of people don't even have beliefs, but they just have defensives or defense mechanisms. They don't believe God will punish them. Or they believe that God will. Yeah. They believe God will punish them. They believe that if I don't, I heard someone say the other day about someone that did something wrong. And this person was like, this is the reason why God set up hell. God set up hell for people like that because they got to suffer from what they did here on earth. Because earth is everything, right? Earth is everything. And therefore, when you die and you go to heaven, we still focus on earth because you're going to heaven from earth. Woo! They believe that God's going to punish them. They believe that because it keeps them from having to face the uncertainty of what if what I'm doing is not necessarily pleasing to God, because they want to please this when it is inside them. It's a part of you. Doing the right thing has a lot to do in understanding how did you pick up your ethics, morals, or personal. They want to say the Bible shaped all of our laws, but the thing is a lot of things shaped our laws. A lot of philosophy, a lot of books, and a lot of our laws that are being shaped now are just based on people having a lot of money. You got a lot of money. If you're out there, you got a lot of money. You can create some laws if you want to. Hire a lobbyist, and you can start doing some laws. So let's take a real quick break as I bring this to a close. And I want to give you something simple in a way to know if your belief is healthy. And what I want to do is I'm going to call it like part of belief engineering, but this is a subtraction test. Right? A subtraction test. If your belief system consistently subtracts peace, companion, um, I'm sorry, compassion, curiosity, self-trust, mental health, we'll come back to that, relationships, accountability, honesty, and your ability to really grow or want to grow. Going back real quick to mental health, I heard a young lady. I thought I had recorded it on my phone, and she started talking about mental health. People going to mental health clinics. I'm sorry, going to therapists and psychiatrists. And she said all these people are going to a doctor for their mental health when it's just demons. It's demonic. She sit there and call mental health, not mental even illness. She don't know the difference between mental health is something we all have. We don't necessarily all have mental illness, um, or developmental disabilities. And so she just said, basically your mental health is you're going to do all these therapist work, and you're dealing with a demon, or you're dealing with demons. You need to be coming to the church. Is that what we're doing? We're making videos to tell people basically to not go to therapy or not go to a psychiatrist where you get your medicine. Just go to Dr. Jesus. Is that what we're on? I'm sorry, folks, but I consider that dangerous. Out of all those things that I just listed there, those things I listed: peace, compassion, curiosity, self-trust, mental health, relationships. If your belief system subtracts those things, then you're not experiencing spirituality. That is a deep level of programming. And what happens is when love is conditional and questions are punished, money is used to manipulate. Fear is the theology that markets to get your church to be big. Yeah, that's one of those environments that wants to claim the gospel, but it's their version. I'm trying to say this carefully because I know some people can feel certain ways, but I just want you to know that what we are experiencing, what we may see, can become most dangerous when it's fused with nationalism, because nationalism is fused with the way we live, aka money and laws, and the laws that can be written or changed for a certain group of people. A lot of times, fear is one of the biggest identities. And you'll know it. You start to know it. And when you can stand up against it and say, you know what, I just believe what I believe. Because I know what I know. That's it. I had some few notes on Christian nationalism, which we covered some of it, and I don't want to cover too much. You can find out so much about that. What I do want you to know is that Deacon, I want you to know that humans. I had a note here that humans are built for community. Um, People still need people. One of the things about I was reading a guy that comes from the evangelical church, and he was a pastor, and he's a content creator now. And these are some things that I thought that highlight really well, and something you might want to look to develop outside of the church. There's weekly rhythm. There's a shared language. Sometimes you can sing together. You come to services together. You have mentors. You have elders. You have people that are there that you can have you know, people that you are connected to. Um, a place to grieve and a place to celebrate, and a place somewhat to be seen as who you are. I remember that. So if you deconstruct and you don't replace the community function, from what I've researched, a lot of times you'll crawl back to the same old system out of loneliness. You'll become spiritually homeless, proud, and isolated. Any of y'all feel that? Or you'll trade one church in for another that just has a different approach or a different vocabulary, which can be fine. It totally can be fine. The main thing that it takes to deconstruct and keep moving is maturity. Maturity. And you're just going to have a new agreement, right? You're going to have agreement. The old church has all the same things as always had: the fear, the punishment, the uncertainty, um, or more certainty than uncertainty. Of course, the hierarchy system. In this conscious community, and as we work through our own life's vicissitudes, um, ups and downs, in the conscious community, we want to have basically some shared values, emotional safety for vulnerability, and a true honest dialogue. Learn how to set boundaries, learn how to grow, have an accountability without feeling humiliated, guilt, shame, right? And the last thing um, that we will look at here um, is what we're discovering in this era in time. You're witnessing an era in time like no other. Um, but I'm not here to say that it's all bad, although it's sad that people are getting hurt. Some people really think it's necessary. And I hate to say it, that if it wasn't necessary, I don't think it would be here. I think it just is. And there's a lot of things that happen within our government that just worked and worked and worked, even though you have some shenanigans going on. For the most part, we don't have much civil unrest. And now it's reached a pinnacle where we all have to get it together in when it comes to states of awareness or states of consciousness and get out of this religious rigmarole, because then it's pulling us out of our critical thinking skills and our ability to just not necessarily fully agree or go with everything that has been said. So that goes for me. If I say something that you don't agree with or I may not be clear on, that's life. That's normal. This is what we should be able to dialogue or discuss or to talk, especially if no one is actually physically getting hurt. Mentally, I mean, but physically getting hurt. Um, what we're discovering lastly is about who we are. We are discovering that humans can be deeply spiritual without being intellectually enslaved to the system and then be or feel gaslit. Like, what? What? What do you use? It's contradicting. We are discovering that people can have a relationship with the divine without needing an institution to mediate this. Hmm. We are here discovering that faith has been used as a word to basically mean don't research, don't ask questions, don't trust your instincts, don't even name your abuse. I heard that recently. Don't challenge power. One thing that people don't like right now when you see it, and you have some people that say I'm a Christian, and other people say that's not the Christian or Christ like I know. And now all of a sudden you're challenging that power, right? Just understand that faith is not weak or fragile. If your version of faith can't survive a hard question, it's not faith, it's conditioning, it's programming. And programming is basically something you may have heard over and over and over again when you were younger, right? When you were openly probably more vulnerable. I heard a story recently the other day that a parent took their clothes and put them in the house like they vanished to make their kids feel like it was the end times, and their parent left and their clothes are laying there. You know how the end times movie are where the clothes just don't look like a pile. The clothes kind of looks like somebody just disappeared. It's kind of that's a level of abuse. But that's how that parent felt. I just want you to know that a lot of you and a lot of people that would listen to this, you don't lose necessarily God. They lost a story about God. A lot of people lose the religious storyline that was built on fear, punishment, control, guilt, shame. And the whole goal in deconstructing this is once you can see that, you can understand that you don't have to throw everything away. There's a lot in my life that I'm like, man, I'm throwing all of this away because I'm tired of it. But then it's like, you know what? Just learn to be, learn to process, and learn to sit with yourself. Sit with yourself. Sit with your pain. Sit with your guilt. Understand that there is a interspiritual connection. And as you deconstruct properly, you can become more human, not less. You could become more Christ like, right? I see that question there. Can we lose God? I think a lot of people in this process lose God or the idea of who God is, especially that the idea that God is in the sky, almost like a real human, and Jesus is sitting on a throne on the other side of him. So you got God and Jesus that are sitting there on physically on a physical throne, and they're like magical beings behind the curtain. And they're not behind the curtain, and they're sitting there with all the billions and billions of people that have died, and they're sitting there on the throne, like, governing the land like it's America. They don't see the fusion or infusion of God, like merging of God, the source, the creation. I wouldn't consider it a being, but more of a energy. It's a source, almost like an energy to us as human beings. We could refer to it as an energy. I believe once we are in union deeply with it outside the body, we will have a clear understanding of the merge of our spirit that is already today integrated with spirit. Where the higher self is already with you. It is a part of you. And when I say higher self, think aura. Think all around encompassing, right? They say the heart can put out energy 8 feet or so, 6 to 8 feet. And you can build that energy. And what happens, you could shift your aura and shift who you are. And you can begin to tap in and tune into the God nature. God as a word that has been used without using my word of the awness. Awe as an awesome, or the awness of the allness that's within us, without us, forever present. Learning to tap in, learning to take hold, learning to let go. The fusion, infusing ourselves with the manna. I do this through breath. As we do this, this is what can allow us to sit with a Muslim or a Buddhist, a Christian or a humanist or an atheist, um, atheist, or a mystic like myself. And we can share love and life and truth and ethics, and ultimately we can share healing. We can move from my group is right to what is real, what is loving, what is something that we can, what is something that we can unify with. find levels of unity. With community and what I'm building at expanding consciousness, it will be something that we have that is just some shared practices and some shared values. I want you to feel safe psychologically, permission to ask questions, and having shared values over shared doctrine. Clear boundaries, and ultimately practices that can help us regulate the nervous system. And if you come to the retreat, the whole retreat is centered on restoration, rejuvenation, revitalization, regulating the nervous system, practices to raise the frequency and vibration. As I used to say, you won't leave the same way you came. This can provide you with some real world support. Just take a moment and just, you might feel the body. Just to breathe, and as you breathe, feel your breath go in and out, your chest rise. And as you feel it, just breathe deep and relax and be present. Just a few deep breaths. And for the last one, I want you to do a real nice, slow, deep breath, deep as you can. And when you feel like you've done it deep, try to get as much as you can out. In more. Holding. And release. And relax. Relax. And just allow yourself to be. Breathing deeply. If we learn to go within, learn to be present in moments, we're helping shift the world. As you shift yourself, there's a lot of power within you. May you have a wonderful, beautiful night's rest. And wake up rejuvenated, feeling whole, feeling loved. You know, you can feel loved even by yourself. You should feel loved. I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone that's here. Make sure you go to the Patreon link, the Expanded Conscious Community. It's really easy. Patreon.com/the Expanded Conscious Community. Just join. You'll get emails. You'll be able to follow me. You'll get all the deets, the ins and outs. I got so much more coming that is designed to help you have community, help build community, even your own. I will get this information out. Some people are coming in the 26th, but if you are, we have to prepare for that with rooms. But this here is going to be at the Forest, March 27th through the 29th. We will talk. I will put something out on Patreon in the Zoom. I love you guys. We'll listen to a little bit of another meditation album that I'm working on. It'll be similar to what you're listening to. And I love you. Everyone that's here, thank you so much. Jolene, walking in peace of knowing all is well whenever we are. I let go and stay in peace. You're in Springfield. You're not that far away. Oh, Miss Gina, I will reach out to you. Thank you so much for stopping through. Mr. Garrett. Yes, Miss Gina, thank you so much. I will be in touch. I'll try to call you tomorrow. Miss Wanda says, you tickle me sometimes, but you speak the truth. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, we had some good comments rolling. I should have put them up on the screen. Yeah, that's good. That is good, Garrett. Your pastor and prayer helps me. Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. We allow people to be. Yeah. I think it's a different process. Guy of this age, yeah. Punishment culture has been a millennium stick. Yeah. This is beautiful, guys. I love the communication. Miss Marie, believe is power, she says. Yeah, this is good. Mother White. All right, y'all. I look forward. If you're in the Patreon, get in the Patreon. You'll get my message on Sunday to come together. I'll send it out so we can have a conversation. Miss Dolores, good to have you. Miss Phyllis. Yes, you could drive. I think you're in Kansas City. Oh yeah, Miss Tita. I'll have to give you a ring, TT. Oh, did I see Prodigal? I think I seen Prodigal. I'd like to just give my little shout outs. And Miss Lindy, you always here. I so appreciate you. I thought I seen Prodigal, but just want to make sure that all you people, this is a live show, so I'll focus on everybody that's here live. Try to move you. All right, y'all. Love you. See you next week.